The problem people have with grids is they tend to try to draw the whole line drawing all together. And then it ends up being not very accurate because you're trying to connect lines, and we can do that part later, and I'll show you some tricks for that, especially with vertical lines and horizontal ones. But for this, we're going to try to really zoom in on each little square and getting it as accurate as we can. So this is what we're going to make to do that. It's just a piece of paper. We're going to use 2 pieces of paper. You can use any kind, printer paper. If you use cardstock or paper that's slightly thicker, that works a little bit better, only because it's sturdier. But you can use regular paper and just put Scotch tape to make it sturdier to last the semester. It's a nice thing to have anyway, anytime you take a class where you're working from observation. Alright, so this is what we're making. And normally you would have an X-Acto knife, which would make this much faster and easier. But you'd also need a cutting board, and you'd have to be able to cut this section out, and it would be pretty quick. But this is an alternative. Rather than cutting out this hole in the middle, we're going to build these areas around it. And it's also good practice for making grids. We're going to make 2 quick grids on regular paper, and we're going to take advantage of the right angle of the edge of the paper. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead, and you can do it with a pen or a pencil. Just be sure the pencil's sharp when you do it. And you just need a regular ruler. You can also use a T-square. You just so my ruler is a little bit dirty from painting, but I'm just going to go ahead and mark every inch so you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to go down to the paper now, pick a corner, and we're going to measure an inch, an inch, an inch, an inch, and we're going to make 5 each way. I'm going to do this twice. So we have, and always make sure you're not totally off on the edge because it goes to the edge. Sometimes I start at a 1 just so it's cleaner. Either way, we're going to do a dot for each, and you want to stand so that it's accurate anytime you make a grid. And then we're going to drag this a little bit down and do more dots. The reason we're doing 2 dots is not everyone has a T-square. T-squares are great because you only have to do 1 set and then you just slide the T-square. But for a grid like this, it's really tiny. We want to line that up as evenly as we can. See, this is where the T-square is a better tool. You can also use another piece of paper to check and see if you're lined up. Looks pretty good. And I'm just going to always extend the line a little. And I'm just connecting these. That one got funny. And then we're going to go this way. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again somewhere else. 1, 2. I can see the edge here, so that's good. Now I connect these. What I'm going to do here is just go across the whole paper, because then I can fit another one in there, because I want to make 2, so I have extra paper to fold over when I do my little viewfinder. I want to make it fairly substantial. Grids are really key for so many things. They're the basis for many logos and designs. And they're a great tool for accuracy, not just for transfer of an image, but when you're working from direct observation and composing designs. You can see, you know, if it looks too crooked. Main thing is that the one in the middle has to be exactly Actually, you know what, we're not, because we're not cutting it. But if you had an X-Acto knife, you would just cut that out, boom, done, and then tape the other one there. But if you don't have an X-Acto knife, it doesn't work, because if you attempt to use a scissor, you end up with holes and crooked edges, and this avoids any cutting from the middle. I'm just doing this all at once, kind of overdoing it actually, but I want to illustrate my point. Basically, it's just so we don't have to deal with cutting it out in the middle. And I'm just going to make these two. And if you really want to practice, just do the whole paper, because we're going to grid your image. Okay. Alright, so this is where it ends. This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one. So this is not in it. So I have two, now I have two 5x5 little squares that I'm going to use to make this little viewfinder out of. I'm going to have a little excess paper. But the beauty of this is, again, if you don't have a X-Acto knife, you can use any tape to do this. So instead of cutting, I can cut this whole thing out, it'll make more sense. So I'm going to cut this out. You can even fold it and cut them out together. And again, the outsides aren't as important, but this is kind of a roundabout way to build your viewfinder. Sometimes people just buy these things. They have little plastic ones at the store. Alright, so we got these two things. And what I'm going to do now is cut a little V shape by going into here, and where this points in, coming out there. So I'm kind of having a little chopped off area over here. Same with over here. I'm going to go down to, just make it a little bit stronger of a mark. You can even use a highlighter or whatever. And then we're going to use these two items to put together to make our center area. So with the scissor, you can always go around things, but if you're ever cutting out inside things and preserving the paper around it, then this doesn't work, scissors wise. This way we can get a clean, sharp edge so that when we overlap these, so then these two pieces, you don't need them, but you could use them for something. Alright, so look, we take this, it's like a little puzzle. Place it right on top. Boom, it's like a Tetris, which is really, I remember, really fun. So I don't know if I did it perfectly, but you can do it a few times till you get it. And then I want to tape it right where it goes. And I want to be able to make sure it's one by one so that it fits around all of my areas. And then since the board's pretty small, rather than having this whole area, I'm just going to fold it over here to make it stronger and to create less of a excess around, because I'm going to be sliding it a lot on here on the picture. So I'm going to make sure I tape it really good in the back. Not quite origami, but doing my best. Okay, so here we go. This kind of tape it down so it's flush. There's nothing protruding and sticking out. Tape it up as much as you absolutely want to. You know, you can tape it this way, tape it that way, whatever you need to do to get it to the point where you want it to be. And again, it's a little roundabout, but it saves you having to sit down with an X-Acto knife on a self-healing mat and cut and everything like that. So you've got this. Now the beauty of this thing is, because what we want to do when we're doing the grid of your picture, is to cover it as much as possible and then take your little viewfinder and place it just over one area. And this one area becomes your all-consuming focus, so that you forget what the picture is, or the whole thing. You're only concerned with this square. And you'll notice that this square has a rectangle and look like a trapezoid shape. These are the things we want to see. So when we draw that with paint, or actually we're going to use pencil, onto the board, once we've covered our scales that we're doing for warm-up, we want to transfer this as is. And what's cool is you can even measure a little. Like if you were to measure how many of these dark values it would take to get across here, that's a classic drawing tool. It's a mathematical use of your eye. I would say about a third. So when I go to render this in my larger 2x2, just put it here. So let's say here's my 2x2, which is twice as tall as wide, and I'm comparing this to that on my grid. I want to make sure that this matches. So if I draw it here, I made a major mistake, and it's going to cause all kinds of problems as I continue. So I want to really look at that, see if it's really vertical, or is it... See, now I think I have it a little that way. There's a little bit of a... Any information that you see, I want to understand what the shape of, not just the dark, but the shape of this. And then if you put some just parallel lines, that helps you start to get a sense of where the value is. And then here, there's a little line here. So I've lost track of whatever my picture was. And then what I like to do is just go down the line. And now we have one that's more like... This one's interesting. See, I kind of want you to get lost in the abstract shapes rather than be consumed with the subject matter. And that's kind of a rule of thumb all the time. So you're going to do that and slide down, slide down. So that's the key, and that's why we're doing the viewfinder. But I'll stop there so it doesn't get too long. But this is what you're going to want to make. And the sooner you make it before class, the better. I'll open the module with this so you can kind of get started on a project before your materials arrive. Look forward to meeting everyone. Bye.